Honestly, I don't even know what to call Jujutsu Kaisen this week. Should we call it Debut Kaisen? Should we call it Twitter Kaisen, or should we call it Silence Kaisen? I don't know. Also, who was it that allowed the guy who has a fetish for smoke effects direct an episode? This Hayato Kurosaki episode was pretty damn good. I won't go scene by scene with this video like I would normally do. I'll talk about specific scenes I like, and then obviously address things about the production of Jujutsu Kaisen as a whole, as I obviously haven't talked about these things in a while in a video outside of TikTok or a community post, and so I definitely want to discuss these things as well. With that being said, make sure to like and subscribe, and let's talk about the episode. The episode director and storyboarder was Hayato Kurosaki, who is one of the main animators of Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2. This is actually his directorial debut, and as I alluded to before, he's really good when it comes to effects animations. He participated on episode 4 with the really nice smoke effects. He had some really nice smoke and blood effects in Chainsaw Man as well. He puts so much detail in his smoke. Specifically love this scene in episode 4 of JJK season 2, where you'll have the smoke and then you'll have the debris that's falling displace the smoke. It's really nice the way he does things. And so naturally, you'll see a lot of effects animations in this episode. Be it whenever Yuji runs after his opponent, you see complex effects animation being animated, the effects animations when the rabbit escape gets dispelled, or the effects animations that ends the fight. This episode was covered with a great deal of effects animation, and I absolutely adored it. There were several cuts in particular that I absolutely loved. Dorion's cut, which was really incredibly smooth, and all ones was incredibly nice, and the kinda Yutaka Nakamura-esque timing was incredible as well on that last stomp. Yuto is also credited on this episode, and while I definitely think it's the weakest cut he's done on this entire season compared to what he did on episode 3 and especially episode 7, my goodness, there were still some really nice things to appreciate there, especially like the Canada-like cross flare in the impact frame. I also really love this cut at the beginning of the episode where Yuji whips this wire around his opponent. Really incredibly energetic with the smears, and the art is absolutely incredible, which is something else I want to talk about. The corrections this episode was absolutely immaculate. A lot of my favorite ones were done by Yosuke Ujima. There was incredibly strong detailed drawings all over the place, especially on the rooftop section with Ino and the seance people. When Ino got his mask taken, the art there it's so wallpaper worthy. Even though JJK has big production issues, even with episodes that have tight schedules, ridiculously tight schedules like episode 8, what really does help a lot is the AD work. They don't always come in at all the times, but they definitely came in on this episode. The other thing that has really been helping JJK season 2 so far has been the compositing. There's a fair amount of limited cuts in this episode, or just weak scenes in general, which is very obviously due to the poor schedule that this staff has. But if we're being completely real, if this was back in season 1 with season 1's compositing, I guarantee you guys people would notice it a lot worse, especially when we're looking at stuff like episode 20 with Yuji versus Toto. So I'm really so glad that the compositing is doing its job and really complimenting the art and making JJK look incredible even though it's having these production issues. The art direction is also just as incredible as ever, probably my favorite art direction I've seen since JJK 0 for being honest, or since episode 3, I can't decide. There's just something about how the city looks at night that just really draws me in, especially from the ground where you have all the lights from the buildings and the street lights that light up the roads and really makes a really cool atmosphere. Visually, I think the episode looked pretty good, but there are obviously some problems with the episode. Like I've alluded to before, there's some pretty weak scenes in this episode, mainly during the fight with Yuji and Megumi, with some pretty stiff animation or some pretty limited scenes overall. Sometimes the action isn't felt as well just because they skip the impact and show the aftermath instead of actually showing it, which is likely an approach to save time. They did a good job at limiting some of the, limited animation, but obviously it's still pretty noticeable at points. Furthermore, this scene with Yuji throwing the car, the energy is here, but he's not moving his mouth. He's screaming, yeah, but his face isn't matching it. It's likely they didn't have enough time to actually animate his face moving, which kind of comes off a little bit goofy for being honest. Now, I've heard a lot of people complaining about JJK Season 2's action as a whole, which is definitely understandable for a fight like this, especially when we're looking back on Season 1 with Sung-Hoo Park's action choreography. But unlike Sung-Hoo Park, most of these animators really do need the time, the schedule, which is something that just isn't there for JJK Season 2, especially on lower priority episodes like this or the grasshopper fight. Crafting together really well choreographed animated fights takes significant time to produce, which is obviously something that the staff doesn't have, and Obviously something that they've complained about, as we've seen Miso do. And it's also just really hard to measure up to the level of action that Sungu Park was capable of producing in general. I've stated this on a TikTok before, so I won't like exactly parrot what I said there. You still have some bits of really good action in this episode, and the big episodes of JJK season 2 have still looked phenomenal, like episode 3, episode 7, my goodness, and the 9th episode, but I can still understand why people would favor JJK season 1's action over this one. Furthermore, I will say I am kind of worried about Jujutsu Kaisen's production as a whole moving forward. We still haven't seen a fair amount of people pop up yet that we normally see on the Sesshomaru line that may not even show up at all, but like Yoshihara and Nakayama. Yuki Fujimoto has only done one cut this entire season. We might not even see him that often as well. It seems like they're really relying on these animators outside of Japan, or the Twitter squad basically, to help get these episodes out on time. Also really concerned because if they're struggling with these episodes, it's only gonna get a lot worse. Don't spoil, but some of the fights are pretty ridiculous in what they'd have to draw. Like there's a fight with a really detailed design summoning multiple detailed designs engaged in a continuous fight. So yeah, I'm definitely worried about certain episodes moving forward. Really hoping they can pull through to the end. We're only halfway through Jujutsu Kaisen season 2, believe it or not. But that's enough ranting from me today. Let me know what you guys think about the most recent episode of Jujutsu Kaisen. I do want to get a lot more videos out this month before Attack on Titan drops. Stay tuned for that. Make sure to have a fantastic day. I'm Debunked by Aaron, and I'm signing out.